Okay, first of all, you're going to want to disconnect the battery, the negative, and push it back. So once we do that, we'll get started. You want to take off this intake stuff. So you're going to have a bolt screw here for that tube, bolt screw for this tube, and then you're going to have a bolt here. There's a total of 3, one more here and one more back here. So those 3 bolts, and there's a couple tubes. You disconnect this tube in the front. You're going to disconnect this tube in the back. And you're also going to disconnect one clip, which is going to be this clip right here. And you have a couple spots where the wires clip on here and back here. Okay, so I'm gonna start getting all this disconnected and show you what it looks like when that's taken care of. Okay, we disconnected the battery. We're gonna go ahead and start grabbing some of these screws. Stick a screw out there. Another screw here. Let's set them over here for safekeeping. We got one more over here. Yeah. Safekeeping. Disconnect the wire harness here and disconnect the wire harness there. Back here, we disconnected that hose. Disconnect this hose. Disconnect this wire harness. So it's ready to go, except it's connected on either end here. So it's going to take a little bit of strength to tear this off. Well, not a whole lot. On this side too. Some people leave this connected and fold the whole thing back, but it'll start breaking stuff. So let's yank that off too. I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so I disconnected it from either side. Everything else was already disconnected, and I just folded over. There's one more little hose here that I never disconnect because it just folds over. I don't need to disconnect it. But you do want to disconnect that if you're going to take this entire thing off and set it aside. Okay, now we're going to start digging into these. We're going to remove all of the ignition coils and then the spark plugs. And this is the intake manifold. We're going to come back to revisit this because this will be an issue. Just keep in mind that it's 10 millimeter for everything in this project. So I just loosen them all really quick. Up here at the top, that's what keeps your ignition coil in there. But I'll loosen them and then I'll go with either hand loosen it or I'll go through and just loosen it like this real quick. Once I take out all the bolts, I'm gonna set them over there separate for safekeeping. Okay, so we also want to press down on the clips right here on the back, and that'll loosen it enough where you can take it off. So let me just connect these and get back at you. Okay, so you disconnect these, you take off the screws. Do that all the way to the back. All right, so far it's all 10 millimeters and clips and things like that, so it's super easy. Now these, you're just gonna yank them out, the ignition coils, one by one. If you're gonna replace everything, it doesn't matter keeping track of where all the ignition coils are going, but it's good to not mix them up if you are just taking stuff out. But if you're doing a full replace, you could just throw these away, but you want to kind of keep track what's what. For example, this one, my reading says my number 2 is no good, so I'm going to number these and save them as backups, but the number 2 will be no good, probably thrown out. Okay, so here we are. This is a cylinder 1, starting from the front. It always starts from the front. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. This is number 2. According to the readings, it was bust, so I'm gonna throw that away. But I'm gonna write 1 on this one, and 3 and 4 just to keep track of them, because I'm going to save them as backups. Because if your truck starts to not knock, but like idle terribly, and you get the codes, and you don't want to wait to order these online and shit like that, because I live in Hawaii, I'm not going to buy these at the parts store. They charge double. Anyways, you want me to fix the truck, huh? So you go beach? Yeah. Alright, bust out your good ratchet with the long extension. And, you gotta get your own specific spark plug grabber. This one says 5/8 on it, so that should help you out. You can get it at your local parts store. Okay, just want to go in nice and gentle. Go in there, feel it lock in, switch it to loosen, and then just crack it open. There you go. Felt the crack. I'm gonna do that 4 times, and then I'm gonna hand loosen all these. This one's really tight. Cool. Just worked on that one. Okay, let's do it again. Boom. All right, see you soon. Okay, so I'm gonna hand loosen this times 4 and pull these guys out nice and gentle. There it is. Boom. Let's do that 3 more times. All right. Spark plugs out all the holes. We're gonna put in some new ones. So Tacoma World and all of online, they really recommend NGK laser iridiums. This will be my 2nd pair. Not that the other ones were bad. It's just that I'm replacing the ignition coils, and these are $10 a piece on Amazon. So they're $18 a piece to $22 a piece in Hawaii, which is retarded. But you know, you get them for 40 bucks on Amazon. You might as well replace them if they're that cheap and that badass. So we're putting the new plugs in. See, it's magnetic. And we're just gonna do the opposite of what we did before, which is instead of screwing it out, we're gonna screw it in. When you place it in, you wanna go left first and then right, so that the thread catches nice. You wanna go nice and slow. Make sure that thread it's screwing in on the thread. So you don't want to go in there and screw up the threading. Then what are you gonna do? Spend thousands of dollars. Yep. So yep, still tightening it. Hand tighten it. Okay, it's hand tightened. It's pretty good. I'm gonna do that 4 times, and I'm gonna go back and tighten it with the tool, so that and by the way, you're supposed to torque it at 15 pounds. I don't have a torque wrench, so I'm gonna imagine 15 pounds. All right, so you wanna tighten these, once you install them all, you wanna tighten them to 15 pounds. I don't have a torque wrench, so I tighten them till they're tight and try not to over tighten them. Because they say you just don't wanna go too tight, because it could bust, it could break the ceramic of the spark plug. Okay, so we're done with the install of the plugs. Now we're gonna install the ignition coils. These are your ignition coils. We're gonna put them in, but before we put them in, we have to put some grease in the tip here. That's the grease. Here's the tip. There's the Q-tip. I'll show you what I do. All right, so you gotta put the grease in the hole. It's because it gets really hot, and the spark plug is sending current through this thing. So you wanna grease it up. So let's see if I could do this with one hand. Okay, yeah. So you got the grease on this bad boy. I'm just gonna put it in the tip. Yeah. And you just want to grease the tip, because that's where the contact is. You know, the tip, maybe go in like ½ an inch or something. But once you do that, the next step is pretty easy stuff. Okay, it's time for the ignition coils. So we're gonna put them all in just like we found them. You should feel the the rubber tube kind of like slide over the freaking ignition spark plug. So we're going to position them so we could screw them in just like before, and so we could clip them in just like before. So what are we gonna, what size, uh-oh, piece of junk. So what size do we need for this? You guessed it, 10 millimeter. Okay, we're gonna put our screws back in, 1, 2, 3, 4. They should be up there. Put them in here, up there. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so I put all these screws in and I hand tightened them. Now I'm just gonna tighten them down, this bad boy, but not too tight. You don't want to bust any of this stuff. You want to make it snug, but don't go ham on this shit unless you want to buy new stuffs. All right, these have all been tightened. Didn't want to bore you with that. Now you're gonna snap all these into place. Do all 4, and we'll start putting the top of this back on. Okay, when you disconnect the battery for this long, your the brain's gonna reset and the throttle body's gonna run weird. So one thing I learned, trial and error, is to clean it. So use the throttle body air intake cleaner, and it's something that's, you know, not gonna fall apart and fall inside like a t-shirt. And then you open up the valve by pushing down, and you could use your finger to hold the valve open and clean on the inside. You could watch a video about it. According to Tacoma World and AI, you do not want to have the engine running while you do this. Okay, so now we're gonna do the opposite of what we did before and reconnect everything, which is gonna be this, well, this, the 3 screws, but I'll show you on the flip side what it looks like. Okay, here we go. I didn't want to bore you. If you got this far, I'm sure you could figure this out on your own, but I put everything back. I snapped this into place. Well, I put this in first, and then this, and I tightened both sides. Then I tightened 1, 2, and 3. Made sure that this was looped in. Made sure that this was looped in back here. What else is there? And we made sure that we snapped this in, and we snapped that back in, and we snapped this back in right here. And so one last look, everything is good. But you know what? The car still will not start because of this. We gotta make sure we put, oops, the battery back on. Yeah, so one last note here. The throttle body, I cleaned it. So when I turn this on, it's going to be easier for the brain to reset. What happens is if you disconnect the battery for 15 minutes, the brain automatically resets to the original air-fuel ratio from when it came from factory, meaning when this shit was all clean. So the best you could do is clean your throttle body, so when your computer resets and has to remap the airflow ratio to make this thing run optimally, that will be very helpful. Keep in mind it might run rough, and you could look up how to make the idle, make the computer's brain reset faster if you Google that, but I'm not going over that in this video, but I am going to do that to this. And thank you for watching. Okay, the truck's on, it's idling okay. It fixed my problem, but I have 2 notes. One note is if you replaced your spark plugs and your ignition coils because it was in limp mode and it was idling very, very rough, if it's still doing that, it's a 15%, well, 85% chance this would fix it, and if this didn't fix it, the remaining 15% chance is that it's probably a fuel injector, which is rare. And you can replace 1 fuel injector at a time if needed. The second note is if you Google it, you can find out how to make your idle reset faster. So that's what I'm doing in here. I have my truck in drive, but that's not how you do it. It's like a 5-step process. I recommend looking it up. I cleaned the throttle body. That was very helpful. The truck's running pretty good, and good luck